fight.
Yes.
People are screaming your name left, right, and center.
Yes.
People are booing sometimes.
Yeah.
And being able to function at your peak physical ability requires that practice so much.
Yeah.
And let's see if that thing you practice can work, because not everything works.
Yes.
Some don't work. They might look fancy on TV or fancy when it's being explained.
Yeah.
But in reality, when your target is moving and your target will hit you if you slip up, the dynamics are very different. So being able to take it from the training ground to the cage or the ring requires thousands of reps of practice.
Yes. Hello casuals, you're welcome to the Casual Experience Show, where we give you exciting MMA news going on around the world. And on today's episode is the happiest of my days since we began this program. We have a professional fighter in our midst, the biggest in Nigeria and one of the best in Africa, Segun Machine Gun Shakes Ogunnoki. Welcome.
Yep. Hello.
Just sitting close proximity to you, giving me good bombs. I've seen you watch your fights, and I've been in love with you and your fighting style from far. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the reason why we call our show the Casual Experience Show is because it's the show for the casuals. When we see professional fighters like you fight, what you put your body through, and the discipline of it motivates us to want to do bigger things in our own personal life. I have a lot of questions to ask you, but why MMA? How did you get into MMA?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, casuals. How did I get into MMA? I think I've been asked this question a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And there's no hard line for, I made up my mind one morning and I said MMA is the way. Not really. Since I was a teenager, I was very much involved in martial arts.
Yeah.
Because I consider myself a martial artist and not a fighter.
Okay.
So I've always been involved in martial arts, and over the years, I was privileged enough and of course determined to pursue different martial arts. And MMA encompasses striking and grappling martial arts, if we had to put it in very simple terms. So in those years, I was able to garner enough experience in both striking and grappling, even though I favor the striking side of things. It's just more entertaining.
Yeah.
But I've been able to gather enough experience in both disciplines, and MMA basically fell on my lap. That is my term I used to describe how I got into it. It fell on my lap. I had some experience doing either, both striking, in kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing, taekwondo, which I started with, and in grappling, jiu-jitsu and judo.
Yeah.
So fast forward 12 years now, here I am.
And in a country like Nigeria, where you're even born in challenges already, and then you see an homegrown fighter like you remind me of the current UFC champion, a middleweight champion, Duplessis right now. And looking through your pages and researching you more, I see that you're a fan of Israel Adesanya.
Yes, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan.
There was a particular point in your pages recently when he lost, and the compilation
my
of
whole
it
team was devastated.
In fact,
we were really hoping for that win.
Yes. When Ugo came here, he spoke highly of you, and he spoke highly of your skills, and he spoke highly of your honesty to methods of fighting. And then I see that you're also the CEO of TMA.
Yes.
It makes me know that you have a whole lot beyond what we see. Yes. Beyond you going into the cage to fight, you have a whole lot of loads to carry.
Yes.
How do you weigh this? How do you weigh the challenges?
Okay, to put it in perspective, from my viewpoint, I found a few lapses in the practice of martial arts in Nigeria.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I will call them unfortunate setbacks that athletes have to face in Nigeria. Generally, ask any athlete who has competed in Nigeria, they would have a few things to say about how competing in Nigeria is much harder than it should be. And honestly, true to them, I have been privileged enough to compete in Nigeria and outside in a bunch of other countries. And it is more challenging to compete here.
Yeah.
Just because of some of these little tiffs, I would call them, because most of them are not tangible things that should affect anyone who has a genuine intention to promote the sport and the martial art. Things that affect them here should not affect them.
Yeah.
So, born out of that experience, I decided to pursue creating a platform where athletes like myself, who are serious, interested, driven, motivated,
Yeah.
I want to create that atmosphere that allows them grow and thrive.
Yeah.
And, I've been doing that for a few years now. I try as much as possible to invest in experience. This helps me bring these things back home to my base, and I can grow from here. So my aim is to make things better, and I start at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that shows the selflessness of you, because even right now you're still on your journey to you're still on a journey. And then for you to be on a journey, you have to have a purpose and focus,
Yes.
which you clearly have. Then but to you to even now have the will I call it the audacity to still say, I'm going to still pick people and help them along what they want to make of their own dream too, is something unique. But I see you last year you had the most that we know in AKO.
Yeah.
Like you're basically the face of AKO. Any casuals, any person that knows fighting and watches fighting around the region will know that. Like even before I knew your son name, I already knew Machine Gun Shakes. And on the page of AKO, you could see me when I was shouting. One of my best fight ever, looking at it, was AKO 5, when you had the fight with your Marcel. That was where I saw the technicality of striking firsthand. How do you go about, coupled with the task of managing a gym? How do you go about the task of your training camp, dealing with injuries? How do you go about it?
Okay, well, first off, how I go about managing a gym or team, because
Yes.
I consider my franchise a team.
Team.
How I go about managing a team and competing professionally.
Yeah.
There is a very strong measure of discipline that I have to put into it, and a very strong level of selflessness, because managing my franchise requires a lot of effort in that direction. And when you have competition and personal tasks to deal with, it sometimes clashes. So I do my best to focus on my team first, and myself second.
Yes.
The reason is I am part of a team. And, I have a saying, it's quite popular, a team is only as strong as its weakest member. So I try to make sure I can develop my team, and my team in turn can help me develop for whatever challenge I have to face. So that is the way I approach it.
Yeah.
And so far, it's been very successful. It's been working.
Has there been times where you have a fight booked,
Yes.
and one of your team members also have a fight booked on that same card, or maybe a card before? How do you go about it?
That's easy. In fact, if you have more than one person on the team fighting on the same card, now we have reasons to motivate ourselves. So this guy does his best, this other guy does his best, and the whole team throws their weight behind both of them. So if any of the teammates has a fight during his camp, we make him work extra, of course. But everybody puts in some effort towards developing any weakness that he has. And as teammates, we all know our weaknesses between ourselves. So each person knows, like, hey, you need to work on this thing, and I'm going to make sure you fix it. The other guy is like, hey, if you have to, deal with this, I'm going to make sure you fix it. So everybody's putting in efforts to try to develop whoever has to step into the ring of fire, like I call it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, personally, the act of mixed martial art takes a lot of discipline, as I know.
Indeed.
How has that impacted your life outside of fighting?
Like, whenever you say fighting,
Out-
I don't describe it as fighting.
Outside.
But yes, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
And before I started doing any martial arts at all,
Yeah.
I would consider myself somewhat of a hard head. And having practiced martial arts for so many years, I am the direct opposite. So
Yeah.
I run away from problems and troubles, anything that gets physical, I try to avoid. And I think that was born out of how much experience I have, practicing these martial arts. And it's tough to find people who genuinely practice martial arts and don't have discipline.
Yeah.
The two cannot go together. You must have a measure of discipline, and that measure of discipline cuts across everything in your life. So, for example, I'm an early riser.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what time I go to bed, I wake up at a particular time. Now, a lot of that was born out of my routine and how I train and practice and prepare.
Yeah.
And we have a timetable that allows every athlete who is part of TMA to train and develop themselves within a short period of time.
Yeah.
And that forces the discipline on you. You have to. If you don't do it, you're out. We don't need people who are not ready to work hard.
Yeah.
And this is not easy work, honestly. It's unfortunate that when you get tested alone. But every part of the sport and the art is a team sport, because you must have people to practice with and train with.
Yeah.
And there's no two bouts that are the same. So the way you approach a tall guy is very different from the way you approach a short guy or a quick one or one that's great with footwork, with each opponent comes a very distinct challenge.
Yeah.
And being able to prepare for that requires a team. It's not something you do alone.
Yeah.
So that's where my team comes in, and that's how we try to plan and balance things in such a way that we can achieve success.
Yes, and I know many upcoming young mixed martial artists are already looking at you as their role model, trying to shape their life out after your lifestyle and the way you go about it. While growing up, or like right now, who was your favorite fighter to watch and look at?
Try to emulate.
Yeah, emulate. Yeah.
I'm a bit of a pick here, pick there, because nobody is perfect. There's always a weakness with every person. And honestly, something that works for one person sometimes doesn't work for the next.
Okay.
So I have picked bits and pieces from a bunch of, great athletes, both in the MMA scene and outside it. But as far as MMA strictly is concerned, I am a very big fan of Anderson Silva, just because he shares that mindset of being a martial artist and not really just a fighter. I share a very strong admiration for George St. Pierre. Oh my, lifetime martial artist. I was in his gym in Montreal.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You should see what they've been able to establish there.
Yes.
I hope to get TMA to that level someday.
Oh.
Of course, I admire Usman and Adesanya and what they've been able to do in the last few years.
Yes.
They put Nigeria and Africa on the map.
Yes.
Like, there's not many other countries who can bring out athletes and they are able to deliver on this level. So I really admire them for it. Some other names that are not very up there. I really admire Edwards. His striking is very underrated.
Leon Edwards?
Leon Edwards.
Yeah.
I'm a very big fan. His striking is very underrated.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. Off the top of my head.
Out of all the fighters you mentioned, JSP is like the only person that inculcates grappling with striking.
Yes.
Anderson Silva, Israel, Leon
They're all striking.
yeah.
Well, I guess I already gave you my bias right there. I tend to favor the striking. I definitely think grappling is very, very important.
Yeah.
I practice at it very religiously. However, if I had to choose a way to finish this guy,
yes,
I'd rather strike him than try to choke him out.
Yeah.
So it's just a preference, not like a thing I think is not I mean, there's some other people who prefer that. So
Yes.
awesome.
And I had to
them.
correct myself when going through typology a couple of days ago.
Yes.
Because at AQ5, it was a scissors kick.
It was a left roundhouse kick.
Yes. And I thought, in my own casual head, I thought that was the finish. Until when I went and I was like, oh, it was ground and pound.
Yes, yes.
So that was the actual finish. And
Yes.
Your style is such an amazing style. But I want to also ask you, with all your busy schedule, because Ugo came here a couple of months ago,
Okay.
and when I was asking him after about you, he was telling me that right now you were in a multi competition in Thailand.
Yes.
I was like, how do you make time? So what do you do in your free time?
I don't have free time. That's
At all.
There's no free time.
Oh wow.
I try to focus my energies towards personal growth and the development of my team. And
Yes.
honestly, there's not even enough time in the day to get through everything that needs to be done sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Of course, self-development. I really, really invest in. There's very limited knowledge in Nigeria.
Yeah.
There's an infinite amount of motivation and strength and determination, but there's very limited knowledge here. Very limited. So I realized this a while ago. So I've been making very strong efforts to try to gather as much knowledge from anywhere that I find that this knowledge is, wherever it is. If I hear there is the best knowledge is in Antarctica, I will be there. Give me some time. So that's how I found myself all the way in Thailand. I'd been there before, and I wasn't there long enough to compete. So I've been making plans since the first time till the last one to go back, be part of a full training camp and compete. I needed to, let me feel some of this energy, see what it's about.
I'm a fan of.
I love
okay.
it.
I'm a fan of this fighter Rotang.
Okay.
And John Haggerty. Their multi stance, the way the fight is just pure, not aggression but sweet.
It is pure aggression.
Yeah.
Oh man, when you talk about people like that, like combined, you could probably fact check me, but they have at least 300 fights between them.
Yes,
that is a wealth of experience. In my head, when I imagine it, it is amazing. The way they would see combat, would be very, very different from anybody else.
Yes,
I mean, honestly, whether it's a casual or even professional fighters, if you haven't fought 300, if you have fought one time, you will understand what I'm saying. It's a very intense experience, especially at the beginning. It's very intense. Now, being able to go through that to a point where you're so comfortable, you're able to do it 300 times and above. Mind blowing.
AKO. Well, I want to also talk about AKO a little bit.
Okay.
I personally started seeing a glimpse of them a couple of years ago when you were like in a kind of Big Brother kind of house.
Was the AKO show?
The AKO show, and you had to be going through rounds of fighting. And then we started with the AKO numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and basically, I have the courage to say that you've been putting the AKO stage on your back.
I'll try.
How has the process been working with experienced head and fighter in the UFC like Usman, who is a fellow fighter and sees what you are doing here in the country and for the African continent? How has it been?
Okay, so first off, the AKO show. When the show came by, we were quite a large number before we were cut down to 14 guys, 14 I think. And they just kept shortlisting us up until the last 14. I still remember the last exchange we had where they cut off, I think, the last 3 guys or 4 guys because we were 18 and they needed to cut it down to 14. And they had us paired randomly and we had to fight. And it was like, you know what? This is all or nothing. This might be your chance to get in, or you don't make it.
That was the exact word.
We had been in a camp a few weeks before, so everybody was already scouting. Like, okay, I need to see who are my real challenges here. And on that day, we did it at the landmark beach. I
Yes.
still remember very well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the two coaches of each team had to select their 7 from that matchup. And it was quite interesting. I was the first pick. I mean, the coach of my team, very good friend. I really look up to the man. He's something. And he could not wait. He's like, the moment he had the chance, I need you in my team. Come this way, And it was very interesting, the whole experience. We had to live in the same atmosphere with, our opponents, And I think there was a very tense factor to that. Imagine you had to fight that guy tomorrow.
Yes.
And he's right there, and it's quite tense.
In the same bubble.
There was a lot of egos flying around back and forth. The show made for a very good experience. We had trainings every day for 6 hours, 4 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, every single day. I think we had a break on Sunday and did only 2 or 4. But every other day, we were training intensively, and, it was something for the whole period. We had a foreign guy from Brazil, who was a 3rd-degree black belt, who was working with us in jiu-jitsu specifically, because I think in Nigeria, that's something we're also lacking. We have some wrestling, but we really lacked in the jiu-jitsu side of things. So he was doing a very great job of working the whole team, both teams. And the show brought very decent exposure. And I could tell the AKO show put in a lot of effort into trying to get it out there, to get people to, know about what they were trying to do and how they were trying to put MMA on the map.
Yeah.
And I think the finisher was partnering with Usman to, get it to that global level. And so far, it's been better. Each show has been significantly better than the last.
Yes.
Each show has been better than the last. And they've made very good efforts to reach out to other African countries. I think the last one, we had over 10 African countries on the fight card.
Yes.
And I can't wait to see AKO 15. You can imagine how much more, connections and how much more exposure the brand would have garnered by then. So I look forward to great things happening with the AKO show.
Our mouth is already watered. I was
Good
even
things are
asking.
coming.
I was already asking one of my friends, Black Child, that like, haven't you heard any news about AKO this year?
It's coming. It's coming.
We're already doing our plus and minus, give or take. Muslims will finish their fasting, then after the fasting, and
soon it will come. It's coming.
And
it's coming.
We can't wait for it. We as casuals here, we can't wait for it. Another thing I would like to ask you, for all you've gone through, what has been in your career so far? What has been your best shining light right now?
I would say competing in Thailand was very up there. I really wanted to do that.
Was it a competition or you just went to train?
No. So getting fights in Thailand is pretty easy.
Okay.
Honestly, it's pretty easy. So if you're there for a period, usually in most of the towns, they have promoters that own stadiums. And I think this is something Nigeria could tap into. They have stadiums in different locations. Like, say they have Era 1 Stadium and Mitama Stadium and Wuse Stadium. And these are not like stadium, like big football stadiums. They're just small stadiums. Maybe it takes 1,000 people, maybe 800 people. There's a ring in the middle. There's an entrance and exit, of course. They have, regular utilities.
Yeah.
And the promoters go around and speak with gym owners. And everywhere, there's like 5 gyms on every street.
Yeah.
And over the years, a lot of these gyms have fighters that compete under the gym.
Okay.
And a lot of them have promoters that try to get these guys to compete at these stadiums. And over the years, it looks like the stadiums have accumulated a measure of reputation. So some stadiums have bigger capacity or usually have much more reputable fighters who compete at that stadium. So, the first time I was there, I did some research. I asked around, tried to find information as regards what I would need to, be part of, the competitions, and I made enough findings then. And the gym I was working with, I had a training camp lined up with them. And, since I was back, I was preparing. And when I went back, it was straight to fight camp. Same day, next day, training begins. We're doing 4 hours training every day. We run, did lots of conditioning. And all of that was preparing for the Muay Thai bout. And I think a week before, I knew my opponent. It was a Thai. Apparently, he was also a trainer in another gym.
Yeah.
And, they weren't going to take it easy on me. It's like, I remember one of the promoters at the stadium was like, you professional. I give you strong opponents. I give you strong opponents. And, in my head, I'm like, okay, we always welcome a challenge. And fast forward to when it did happen, it was lovely. I think a lot of Thais found it interesting that a black man or someone with black skin was there. I remember getting a lot of weird looks. Yeah. Some parents would throw their kids at me, like, take pictures. Go picture. It was quite interesting. And if I stayed longer, I would have competed more, because the promoters, you win, they want you to fight more. It's like,
are these sanctioned fights?
I think so, yes. Okay. Yes, they are.
But yeah. Now, isn't that a form of challenge in our society here, where you can't just pick fighters like maybe that train in TMA and say, okay, let's organize something like this where we own our skills against each other.
That, of course. But the difference between doing that here and there is, there the infrastructure is already there.
Okay.
Here, it is not. Everything from the ground up is literally put together. Everything is scratched. Like, in that place, same way you have your studio here, when you have guests, they just come in, you ask questions, exchange discussions, and the show is over. Yeah. Same way it is there. The ring and building is already there.
Okay.
They just put promotions. Every street has placards they put there. And every week there's 3, 4, 5 fights in different stadiums. So this week you have Tuesday Fight Night hosting at Mitama Stadium. Thursday there's Thursday Fight Night hosting at Irawan Stadium. Yeah. And it's like that everywhere. I was mostly in Phuket. I visited Bangkok, but I was mostly in Phuket. It was just a more welcome city. Bangkok was kind of like Lagos.
Yeah.
But, the fighting culture thrives there. It thrives. Yeah. I remember a lady I met the first time I was there. And this time, there was a 1-year difference, and she had 17 fights in that period.
Oh, wow.
Because she was still in the same training camp I had while I was there this second time.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting to know that since the last time I saw her and now, she has fought 17 times.
Oh, wow.
In Nigeria, how many times you get to fight?
Yeah.
Now imagine if I and this person started training at the same time. Fast forward 1 year, this person has 17 fight experience, and I'm still here struggling with 3.
Yeah.
So it's...
Is the impact of the government included in this, or just individuals that form a body that are interested in fights and organizing mixed martial fights? And how do you think that will help? How do you think that comes in play in our country, Nigeria? What do you think has to be put in place? Obviously, the infrastructure is in there, and you are playing your own part. But one person can't make a river or can't make an ocean.
True. I get what you mean. There's a lot of factors at play here. So yes, there might be a factor for the government. It seems like everything in Nigeria wants to put on the government.
Yeah.
Yes, the government does have a lot to play. But I would say the culture is what would be the most impacting factor. Now, here's what I mean.
Okay.
Over there, the culture is to be fit and train. That is culture. Like, that is what it's like their tradition.
Yeah.
It's like here, your traditional dance is Muay Thai. Yeah. This is what everybody does, for fun. It's everywhere. So it only just flows off that, such that it's already a cultural thing. They could easily make competitions out of it.
Yes.
Here, Not so much. In fact, if you introduced yourself to a random person as a fighter, I think they're going to look down on you here.
Yeah.
So, and I myself have had various experiences where, somebody recognizes me in some place, or one thing leads to another, and it comes up that I am a fighter, like they like to say. And I always try to correct people. I'm an athlete. But even at then, they have this look about you like, what, you're a fighter, so that's all you do.
Oh.
You don't do anything else, And my point is that in Nigeria, we still have the mindset that people who do this professional fighting, if you will, are jobless. Like, you don't have what to do. That's why you're going to do this. So until we're able to change that mindset somehow, I'm not sure how that can happen. But
the mentality.
Perhaps if we have more bodies like AKO Show, that makes competing at this level very appealing.
Yeah.
Then of course perhaps it will change people's mentality, and then people will start to admire how much hard work goes into
the
being
presence
able to
of competitors.
compete.
You mean the presence of competitors?
Yes. It's going to make everybody step their game up. It's going to make everybody step their game up. So now, I mean, I don't want to try to put anybody down, but then any brand who is going to hop on board knows that competition is high.
Yeah.
You need to bring your A game.
Yeah.
And then of course business people and people along the corridors of this niche can find ways to make it develop so they can make money, of course, because it's business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So they would find different unique ways to make it thrive and make the Nigerian market receive it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think it just needs to be put and packaged the right way.
Yeah.
Nigeria is ready to take it. We have enough of everything,
Yes.
from infrastructure to
even the athletes.
people to athletes. Exactly, we have everything. We just need all of these pieces to come together.
Yes.
And the outcome will be amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
I used to tell people when I'm trying to make them watch fights, I'm like, you see all these fighters with the UFC. If you know the kind of fighters we get for here, we say
We have lots
they,
of them.
they just need guidance.
Yes.
And just the adequate facilities to like when I check highlights I check training sections, even on your page, I see the skill. When Yahuza came here, he was talking about the advancement of techniques and all that the facilities, and gave great kudos to you for what you are doing. That even if the TMA presence wasn't there, most athletes that you see even competing and even trying to achieve stardom now, not stardom, but like trying to reach their dream now, would not be. And for you personally, I noticed that you don't talk about, for all the journeys you've been through.
Yeah.
You've not mentioned a single bit about your injuries or anything you go through.
Injuries are normal.
You see, that's what I mean. Like you're human after all.
I've accepted it. They're normal.
But
as a professional athlete, you need to be aware that injuries will happen. It's not a matter of can. It will happen.
And then you deal with it.
That's where safe training comes in.
Yeah.
So I learned, I was privileged enough to learn from this very renowned coach called Firas Zahabi.
Firas Zahabi,
yes. Very renowned coach. Search him.
Yes.
He's lovely. You should see the man. Very calm, very chill, and he just, when he explains, there's not so much. He just tells you this is how
GSP.
it is. Exactly. He was GSP's coach. And I found it very admirable because, when he teaches, it's like he's very involved but does it very casually.
Yes.
And he would say, it's like, fighters get most of their injuries in the gym and not when they fight.
Yeah.
Check around. So the problem with that is bad practice. A lot of fighters have so much of an ego that you feel the need to express that ego in the gym. No, save it for the cage.
How about to impress you?
Save it for the cage. Anywhere else is not worth it, honestly. Personally, if I'm not getting paid to throw punches, I don't care. Why should I hit you? In fact, I'm likely to spend money because now I've hurt you and have to take you to the hospital. Don't make me spend money I didn't plan for. Nigeria is hard enough. So I'll avoid all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I really took some of those lessons and I try to apply it in my gym. We spar very often and we try to keep injuries to the minimum.
Yeah.
The reason is because we keep our egos outside. Here, we came here to train. We want to practice. let's see if that thing you practice can work, because not everything works.
Yes.
Some don't work. They might look fancy on TV or fancy when it's being explained.
Yeah.
But in reality, when your target is moving and your target will hit you if you slip up, the dynamics are very different. So being able to take it from the training ground to maybe the cage or the ring requires thousands of reps of practice.
Yes.
And if you're not able to practice safely, then one, you can't practice. Two, it doesn't translate into the cage because you haven't practiced it enough. Three, you probably don't understand it enough to apply it. A lot of these things you have to do thousands of times for it to even sit well in your mind. Like, okay, now I understand. Yeah. Because, everybody is so interested in the fancy stuff. Like, hey, can you show me how to do that spinning, jumping hook kick? And you think, okay, I've learned it. Now you can apply it. No, it doesn't work that way. So any of those things you see on TV, in the UFC, in any other brand that, you admire, everything you see any of these athletes do, they've done that thousands of times.
Yes.
Reps on reps on reps to be able to perform like that under pressure, under high stress, under the highlights.
Yes.
People are screaming your name left, right, and center.
Yes.
People are booing sometimes. And being able to function at your peak physical ability requires that practice so much. And if the atmosphere is not right for this practice to happen, then you can thrive. So that's what I try to, enforce in my own gym, to make sure we can practice over and over and over in as realistic an atmosphere as possible, but without injuring ourselves. So we can train tomorrow. Like a jiu-jitsu coach of mine used to tell me, he says, don't break your toys. If you break them, now you have nothing to play with. And with our sport, we need to play a lot. We need lots of play. You need to, mess it up a few times and know where you need to fix. Now, if the atmosphere is so toxic that I can't even afford to miss, because I miss and these guys take my head off, then I can't practice. And then what? I can't grow and I can't learn. Exactly. So, that is something I have tried my best to make my own niche different from most other places in Nigeria, because honestly, it's an ego tussle everywhere. Everybody has something to prove to you. And that is just an unfortunate outcome. Because I wish they would drop their egos outside and train freely. The growth is infinite.
Well, I wish we could talk some more. I want this talk to go on forever, and I'm sure beyond this production we will still go to talk, because I have a whole lot of questions to ask you. But as our producers are already signaling our end of time, I would just like to ask you one more question. Now, for a young athlete wanting to, that loves the act of mixed martial arts and wanting to emulate fighting and learning, what's your your advice to them right now?
Start training now.
Okay.
Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till you get strong. Don't wait till you get fit. Don't wait till your father says you can do it. Don't wait till the atmosphere is right. There's an infinite number of excuses. I've heard so many. Don't wait. Start now. Because there's not enough time. So start now, and any experience you can get, add that to yours. Look for a gym, look for a community where you can train and express yourself safely. And then you can begin your journey. And hopefully the sky is the limit.
And as you've heard from Shegs, start now and practice safely. Shegs, thank you so much for coming, and
thank you for having me. Thank you.
If when we call on you again, you would when you have the chance and opportunity, you would answer to our call.
Thank you.
On this note, guys, I thank you for listening to us, for sharing and liking. It's a wrap, yo.